What's up, everybody? You're very welcome along to Sunday night's late night agenda. Tick tock, tick tock. That transfer window clock is getting closer and closer to 11 p.m. on Tuesday when a window slams shut, and we need to find some answers, ladies and gentlemen. Let's go through everything we have tonight. I'll talk about all the links. You guys can tell me about everything that you've heard, and we'll see if we can come to a bit of a consensus. So, lovely to see you all in, folks. How are you? I hope you're all well. Don't worry about Craig being late. He's rinsing right now with his wash and go stuff. I wasn't late, mate. No, I wasn't late. We pressed go live and YouTube didn't go live again, so we had to reset the stream. It actually wasn't our fault for once, but you know what I mean. We'll blame Connor anyway. So, right, loads of stuff to go through, folks. Loads of stuff. I see a lot of talk about Luis Suarez in the chat. I will burst that bubble for you nice and quickly if you want, ladies and gentlemen, but we'll get to that as well. How long is the lives? Well, it depends, mate. You know, some people live 80 years. Other people... Nah, I know what you're... I'm only joking, dude. I don't know. We'll play it by ear. See how we feel. See how we get through everything we need to get through. And we'll go from there. Does that work? It's great. It feels weird. It feels like I haven't been on here in ages. Just me talking to you guys. I don't know if it is just me, but it feels like a goddamn eternity. Right, let's go. How many are we signing? Good evening, Craig. Dermot, good evening to you, my man. How are we doing? Right, where do we want to start off with tonight? We start off with... I want to wait for the chat to fill up before we go two-footed on the owner. So let's start off with something a little bit stupid. Harvey Elliott, and something that I read that really wound me up on this. And this comes from the font of knowledge that isn't Danny Mills. But let me just pull up my images here. Right, so... Danny Mills has been opening his gob again about one of our players, and again Danny Mills has just shown that he needs to just shut the fuck up. Nobody cares what he has to say. So former Manchester City defender Danny Mills, former shite Manchester City defender Danny Mills, it should read, believes Harvey Elliott is not ready to become Gini Wijnaldum's replacement and claimed the 18-year-old is nowhere near his level. Danny, did any of us fucking say he was, pal? Did anybody sit here and say he's the Gini Wijnaldum replacement? Did any Liverpool fans say it? Did our manager come out and say that he's the Gini Wijnaldum replacement? Because forgive me, Danny, I don't remember hearing or seeing that anywhere, pal. I remember hearing that he's going to get more minutes this time, but I really don't remember hearing anybody say we don't need to sign the Gini Wijnaldum replacement because we have Harvey Elliott. Danny Mills looking for sound bites yet again. Who would have thought? Mills, shut it, mate. Don't talk about our club. Nobody gives a fuck what you have to say. Harvey Elliott is a talented young man that we're very blessed to have at the football club. You, throughout your entire career, Mills, aren't fit to lace that 18-year-old's boots, let alone talk about the talent that he does or does not possess. So I presume, and, you know, suggest, Danny, that just like your shit punditry career and your shit football career, you leave this to us Liverpool fans to decide, because we really don't care, Danny. Harvey Elliott is a young man coming through. He's red through and through. He got his opening game at Anfield against Chelsea yesterday, and he looked absolutely top-notch. And for anybody to say anything else is completely disingenuous, and none of us are expecting him to play 50 games this year, Danny. None of us. So why don't you just say what we all thought and what we're all thinking, instead of trying to get the cheap sound bites? Just say that FSG are cheap bastards and that they won't go out there and buy Klopp a replacement. Rather than trying to make it all sensationalist, just put the blame where it lies. Go straight to the owners and say they're too goddamn cheap to give Jurgen Klopp what he needs, and then we'll all be happy, Danny, and we won't need to be talking about your stupidity yet again, fella, because you, every time you open your mouth around Liverpool, mate, I find myself having to come on here and not justify it, but correct your stupidity. Just leave it out, mate. None of us give a fuck what you have to say. Stick to talking about Oil-Rich FC or whatever that ex-club he used to play for is called nowadays. Manchester McFucking whatever it is, McFlurry. I don't give a fuck. I'm sick to death of hearing about Danny Mills. How is he even a pundit? Like, he blanked his career as a footballer, and we're still having to have his opinions rammed down our throats about an 18-year-old lad that made his debut at Anfield in front of a packed, not his debut, but his league debut at Anfield in front of a packed house and put in a great performance. He's an absolute cauliflower, is what I'm going to say. I'm going to be cauliflower is the word I'm going for. Right. Anyway, so that's the early doors. That's what we go with, early doors. Harvey Elliott and why Danny Mills just needs to STFU, really. So we'll move along with that one anyway, ladies and gentlemen. And we'll start to get into the real crux of the matter, which is, of course, the fact that the transfer window clock is ticking. Now, a lot of people are talking about contract renewals in the chat. Look, contract renewals, whether they will or won't happen, to me, and I was actually having this conversation with Connor before we started tonight, because it's it would be great, and you know, it would be very FSG to announce Hendo or maybe a Salah contract renewal on deadline day, but don't let that fool you. There's no pressure. There's no real time pressure on those contract renewals like there is on the transfer window slamming shut. And what's very interesting now is we're starting to see more mainstream journalists suggest that we may actually be a little bit short in the attacking department. Now, let me talk you through why I believe this to be the case and what I think we could or should do to try and solve it. So let's have a look at yesterday as a prime example. So we're playing against Chelsea in a game where the only real attacking threat that we had on the bench, because let's be honest, he never looked near Takumi Minamino, never looked near Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, and never went near Naby Keita to change that game up yesterday. So the only real attacking threat that Klopp feels that he could have trusted yesterday was in Diogo Jota. And he was forced onto the pitch in the first half because Bobby picked up what may be a hamstring, or I think it's a hamstring injury. And that forced Klopp into bringing on our only real attacking threat. Think to the end of the game. We're looking to push ahead and try and win it. We're looking to push on. We're defending deep, or they're defending deep. We're playing against 10 men. We bring Thiago on to try and move the ball quicker. Not really an attacking player, but you can kind of understand it. And then Pearl Robbo's absolutely cream crackered. Do we have another wide forward to bring on? Nope. We're still trying to bring on a fullback to try and change the game in the last 5 minutes when we're really looking to push for a winger. If that right there doesn't tell FSG or any Liverpool fans that we are 1 or 2 injuries away from another Dejan Lovren situation with centre-back last year, I don't know what will. And that was only game number 3. And that's before all the international breaks. And that's before we start playing 2 games a week. And we here, as mere mortals, have been banging this drum the entire window, saying we need adequate reinforcements for the attackers. Midfield, I think we could probably get away with. But it is very, very clear, because if we are counting Harvey Elliott as a midfielder, if we are, which Klopp seems to be playing him in that system, 1, he won't be covering all of Gini Wijnaldum's games like Danny Mills and some lunacy seem to suggest that he might, nor will anybody expect him to. But he will probably get a fair amount of starts in that area, and that's grand. But we do need options from the bench. We played against not just a low block team yesterday, a team that were forced into low block, and one of the greatest defences in the Premier League. So it was going to be difficult to break them down, but what did we have? We had no options. You know, with the greatest of intentions and with the greatest of respect, Klopp's options to change that game up and to try and bring on a real attacking threat were extremely limited. And that is, once again, because we have the same conversation. Our first 11 or 14 is absolutely sound, but away from that, the drop-off is steep and it's real. And yet again, we're only now starting to see some of the media, some of the mainstream journalists start to point out these deficiencies in our squad, which us fans have been talking about for the longest time. But we're called lunatics. Do you know what I mean? But you're either FSG in or FSG out, according to some people. There can't be this middle ground of realism. But now apparently there can be, because everybody else is starting to dawn on them that, oh shit, if we don't actually go and sign a forward, well, maybe we could be in a little bit of trouble if Bobby picks up an injury. Or we already know that Salah and Mane are off to the AFCON. Granted, that is for a relatively small amount of games, but it means somebody else has to pick up that slack, and it means there's going to be more games in their legs in a really busy festive period, which we tend to suffer with. Well, we're not great in and around January usually. So look, I'm like every one of you out there right now. I'm checking my phone constantly. I'm looking at WhatsApp. I'm refreshing Twitter. I'm going on all the live blogs. I'm following every transfer story I can, trying to find out if there's any chance that our owners are going to realise what the rest of the world and us Liverpool fans have known for the longest time, and that is that we need an attacking reinforcement. It was said at the start of the window. It was even said that an attacking reinforcement was the priority ahead of a midfielder. Klopp believed that he could cope in midfield. It's the attacking priority, or the attacking option, that we've been lacking this entire window. We know it. They know it, and to try and kid us with anything else is just bluster and lies, and they are just being cheap. There's no other words for it. They're just being cheap. And if you don't want to take my word for it, well, let me just read you something else out then. 1 second, folks. Fabrizio Romano, his words, not mine. The club, Liverpool, will only buy in the case of real bargains. So what does that tell you? Well, here's what it tells me. It means that, one, there clearly is money there, but the tight bastards won't spend it. Or two, they're acknowledging that we need to bring in bodies and they still won't do anything about it. But either way you read that scenario, the club are acknowledging that they're either too cheap or that they know that there's an issue and they're not willing to resolve it. How does that leave our manager? Does that leave Jurgen Klopp set up to go about the best way he can of trying to attack this Premier League and the Champions League, let alone the domestic cups? No. It means that once again, himself, Pep Linders and the coaching squad are scratching their heads trying to figure out how they can manage getting people through a 60-game plus season, managing minutes in their legs, managing international travel, keeping everybody COVID secure. It's just ridiculous. We are turning into a laughingstock. A laughingstock, ladies and gentlemen. And I can't defend it. I don't want to defend it. But I don't want to go in on the manager because, you know, why would I? Why would I have anything negative to say about Klopp? I love the man. Love all the players in the squad. But they need help. They need reinforcements. It's straightforward. Craig, we bid 89 million for Chiesa. No, we didn't. Bid for Vlahovic. We absolutely did not bid 89 million for Chiesa. One paper or two papers in Italy who were hyping up Chiesa said we bid for Chiesa. Did you once ever see James Pearce, Melissa Reddy, Paul Joyce, any of the Athletic staff, anybody from the Echo report that Liverpool have bid £89 million for Chiesa? Because I haven't, and that's just being honest with you, Neil. So, like, just because you read something, mate, doesn't make it true. We didn't bid 89 million for Chiesa. We absolutely did not. 100%. If we're right now bargain bin shopping, and as Fabrizio Romano said, Liverpool are looking for a very, very late, cheap bargain if we're to do anything, what makes you think that we were suddenly willing to spend 89 million on Chiesa at one point, and now when there are so many other options around, we're doing nothing? You know what I mean, mate? And I'm not trying to be rude. I want to read you out something that I don't think I've ever done actually before, but I'm going to read it out now. And it was in relation to an article that a good friend of ours, James Pearce, somebody who, you know, I hold in the highest of esteem, wrote a piece on The Athletic speaking about maybe, again, kind of what we're talking about here, that maybe Liverpool do need to question or look at the option of bringing in another attacking player. And the reply I'm going to read out to you. Now, I won't say who it's from because, you know, the guy deserves his anonymity, but I agree with the comment, which is why I'm reading it out. He said, "I'm sorry, James, but this article has come far too late. I see people making fun and saying the FSGL brigade should support another club. Why should people who want the owners to invest in the squad be questioned more than the actual owners? Just like last season, we needed a backup left back and we sold our centre back to get one. This season, we needed a centre back and we let a midfielder go essentially to make this happen. Every season we hear sell to buy. Next summer, what players will be available to sell? We were told that making signings if they were changing or something along those lines. Jadon Sancho, Kai Havertz, Eduardo Camavinga, Kylian Mbappe, Erling Haaland all have or will move in the past or the next 12 months, but we haven't been in for any of them. We hear that LFC can't afford those players and that clubs like Ron's won 40 million for Doku. Why didn't we sign him when Ron's bought him for 20 million? Why didn't we sign Sarr when he moved to Watford for 30 million? We bought well in the past, but we must say that we've bought prepared poorly in the past 12 to 24 months, despite winning the title. If FSG can't afford to invest in the squad, they should say so instead of having journalists put out stupid lines about contracts over signing players, so the fans can decide whether we should protest for new owners that can actually afford to keep us challenging." Now, everybody won't agree with every word of that, nor do, of course, I expect you to. I'm just trying to say I agree with a lot of what that gentleman was saying in that response. It is too late. Why are we only hearing this now from some of the mainstream media? Was it because Bobby picked up a little knock yesterday and suddenly reality dawned on a few of us? Do you know what? It's what we all know. It's what we've been saying for the longest time. £40 million is cheap, said James. It's reasonable, mate. Do you know what I mean? That's the thing. In this transfer window, most of us, now of course there's always going to be outliers on either side that are too far gone either way, but most of us realistically expected that we'd go out, we'd sell the players that we had to try and sell, the fringe players that the club wanted to move on, and that we'd look to address the attacking option and maybe a midfielder. The centre-back situation was sorted and resolved very well, but that was last year's mess-up that we should have learned from, but we haven't. So here we are, we've moved Shaqiri on. We've moved a lot of other players on. We've brought in, I think we're about 12 million up right now as things stand. And there is talk that maybe Divock Origi or Nat Phillips could move on before the transfer window slams shut. But yet again, we're stuck here talking about us having no money. Expecting Klopp to deliver a champagne lifestyle on a little budget or an Aldi budget. It's quite frankly, it's embarrassing. I don't know what else to say. It is embarrassing that we have one of the greatest managers in the history of our football club, one of the greatest managers currently plying his trade in the world right now, who has delivered consistently over the time he's been here, and yet isn't being backed by the board. Now, don't buy into this. At least, no, excuse me, I've no right to tell you what not to buy into. I don't buy into the fact that Klopp says the right things in the media and says that we can only live within our means and he can't understand how other clubs can do this, that and the other. I believe that that's just Klopp being a good statesman. I believe that that's just Klopp not wanting to undermine his players, and that's exactly what you'd want from a manager. Any in-house disagreements should be just that, kept in-house. We shouldn't hear about them, and Klopp will and should say all the right things to the media. So I believe truly that he's looking around now going, right, Arsenal have dropped 140 million odd. Chelsea have spent some money, but to be fair to Chelsea, they have recouped a lot of money in this window. If you look into some of the transfer business that they've done in this window, you'll see they've brought in quite a lot of money in this window. United have gone out and dropped money. Not just that, but they brought Cristiano Ronaldo back to Old Trafford just so Manchester City couldn't sign him, because they knew that they couldn't allow that to happen. They knew that that would cause a fan base to revolt even more so. And yet we're sitting here with delusions of talking about Luis Suarez, because he's got 1 year left on his Atleti deal, and to my knowledge, one, I don't think he'd be good enough. You know, he might be a decent player to come off the bench with 20 to go, but he ain't going to press like a Bobby Firmino. He's not going to press like a Diogo Jota, not at the age that he is now. Anyone who's watched Atleti will know that. I'd rather Klopp walks if it means getting FSG out, said Neil. None of us want that to be a thing, Neil. You know, and I know you don't as well, mate. Like, we're all that annoyed and frustrated at the minute with the owners, and it's not. Oh, how do I say this? Everything is nuanced. This isn't a black and white situation. It's not they've never done anything good for us. We're denying any positives that FSG have ever done. No. I like to feel, particularly on this channel, that we balance it up. We've weighed the good things that they've done and we've credited them for it. We've also called them out on the negative stuff. But that's what we're supposed to do as fans. We're not here to bluster and to blow smoke up their arses or to lick up to the club. Nor are we here to try and run down the club that we love. We're here to try and give an honest assessment of what we see in front of us. And what we've seen in front of us over the past 2 to 3 seasons has been a serious lack of investment for Klopp in the playing squad. And those facts are laid out there bare for everybody to see, ladies and gents. And I'm quite frankly just disgusted. Disgusted by our owners yet again. Darren McCanty, thank you, mate. Welcome to Anfield Agenda FT. Thank you for becoming a member. We're closing in really, really closely on 118,000 folks. We're less than 15 away. So if you haven't done so already, please do hit that subscribe button, drop a like on the video. I'm going to go through as many of your comments as I can tonight, so don't worry, I'll get through everything, hopefully, that we want to get through. Sarah Marshall, how are you, my friend? Said, I'm not a money girl. Good, glad to hear it. But does the new stand and training ground cost money? Is that where the cash has gone? Hope all is going well. No, it's certainly a very fair question, Sarah. And what I would say to you is, of course, you know, they cost money. And FSG loaned Liverpool the money to build the main stand and for Kirby for the training facility. But when it comes to the likes of FFP or accountancy, and again, you said you're not a money girl. I'm certainly not an accountant, Sarah. But that doesn't come into play. It doesn't get measured with regards to FFP or anything. But still, it is money that has to go out each year. And if my memory is correct, the loan for the main stand was spread over 15 years. And it's nothing, that won't be covered, I don't think, by the corporate. I think it's pretty much covering itself, Sarah, with the corporate ticket sales, the hospitality and all that kind of stuff. And yes, they loaned us the money. And to my understanding, there was, I think, 3% interest on that loan, which is purely there to cover the cost of inflation between the time the loan was taken out and the time it was repaid. That's my best knowledge of it, or my best understanding of it. If it's different in any way, I'm always happy to be corrected on it. But yes, they are, cash. But that was actually cash loaned to us. So that wasn't money that Liverpool had in the club. That was loaned to us, and yes, does have to be repaid, but over 15 years. So I hope I've explained it. I've explained it as best as I can with my limited knowledge of finances as well. Right, what else we move on to? This, I said Fabrizio Romano, Bargain Hunt FC. Again, not just Fabrizio Romano saying it, but I want to reiterate not that one. 1 second. I'm bringing up the wrong images here. I can already hear Connor sniggering. The club will only buy in the case of real bargains. We've talked about that one. And yeah, I think James Pearce put something out as well. Let me just check my phone because I have so many different things on it here at the minute. Second, maybe Connor sent it to me. Yeah, so Minamino and Oxlade-Chamberlain left on the bench, Origi not on the squad. It feels like LFC are still an attacker light for the challenge ahead. That's a tweet from James Pearce. So at least James Pearce has the courage of his convictions to speak honestly and lay out there what we all already knew. It's one of the reasons I like James Pearce. Now, we won't always agree with everything James Pearce writes, nor should you. But, at least he's shown some honesty. And, well, I say showing some. I believe James Pearce is always honest. But you know what I'm trying to get at here? He's laying out there what we all already knew. That we are an attacker light. And one injury and we're up shit creek again. And we already look like we have to wait on the scans for Bobby Firmino to see what the situation is there. We all hope that obviously Bobby's okay, and we hope that the scans don't show up anything serious. But, again, one injury and we're all scrambling. And that is entirely avoidable for around 40 million quid. Whether that is Jeremy Doku. And look, you can't call Jeremy Doku a reactionary signing when we know we've been tracking him since he's been 16 years of age. Now, the bad news around the Jeremy Doku stuff is that we're not the only club interested in him. Spurs are apparently now interested in Jeremy Doku as well. A source there on the screen, as you can see. So, I'm not saying that Nuno and Spurs will go and sign Jeremy Doku before the transfer window closes on Tuesday, but we do know that if we were to make a play for Jeremy Doku, that he loves the idea of coming to Liverpool. It's been well documented. We talked before about the fact he was brought over when he was at Anderlecht, I think, at 16 years of age, shown around. The club didn't convince him to make the move then. He went back, continued to progress, made his move to Ron last year, had a very good season, had a very good Euros, and we know what a talented guy is. So, pulling the trigger on this transfer wouldn't be reactionary. It would just be bringing a player in that we've been tracking for 3 or 4 years. And nobody can say that he's not up to it, because he clearly is. And nobody would say we're buying him for the right here and now either. We aren't. But bringing him in now, allowing him to play the games the club can manage him through in his first season. And if we come up short, maybe then he has to get thrown in at the deep end. But if not, he has time to acclimatise. And if we can maintain this season with the attackers we have, with Jeremy Doku, maybe, I'm using him as an example here, getting some minutes here or there, so be it. He's ready to go then for next season, if we do move on one of the other attackers. It seems so short-sighted. And unless we as fans are missing something very clear here in the big picture, some absolute masterstroke of genius that FSG have planned, it just feels like we're having the wool pulled over our eyes yet again. And it's sadly entirely predictable and entirely frustrating, and I can't see any reason other than brinksmanship why, if we're going to act in the window, we're leaving it this late. I don't see who it benefits, other than the sake of a few million quid, perhaps. Unless we pull an absolute rabbit out of the hat before Tuesday, and I'm talking a Nicola Barella, a Pedri, a superstar, then all of this brinksmanship will have been a load of me arse, and we should have got this deal done earlier on. Whichever deal it may be. Because we are an attacker light, and it is abundantly clear. We're probably going to get Sarr. Honestly, hand on heart, I don't think Sarr was good enough. That's my personal opinion on Sarr. When we got Jota instead of Sarr, I was actually really happy that we got Jota because I think he fits our system better than Sarr would. But I can't deny that we were in for Sarr. We made Watford an offer, or at least inquired to the Potsy family about his availability. We were given a number, blah, blah, blah. And if I read somewhere the other day, didn't Villa lodge a £45 million bid, or we're considering a £45 million bid for him? I'm sure I read that somewhere. I just don't know if the bid was actually lodged or not. Would I swap Keita with Aouar? Why do we have to lose somebody in this scenario? This is again, mate, and again, sorry, dude, I'm not having to go with you, Mohammed, here. But why in every scenario where we're getting a player do we have to fucking lose somebody? Why are we talking, would you get rid of... And again, mate, I'm not having to go with you, Mohammed, sorry. I'm just... Because it's an ongoing thing. It's always, well, we get somebody, we got to lose somebody. We get someone, we lose them. We get someone, we lose them. We've already trimmed the squad. We've done that. Been there, done it this summer. Moved players on. Grujic moved on. Shaqiri moved on. Goalkeeper Gabara moved on. Young Lee Miller moved on. There's a couple of others that I've lost off the top of my head that have moved on as well. Young Welsh guy winger Wilson moved on. So, you know, those wages and fringe players have been freed and cleared. And even adding to what I said the other night, when you amortise, when you give a player a contract extension, yes, you're giving them a bump in wages, no doubt about that. But on the balance sheet of the club, you're also now amortising the value of the player. So let's say we still owed 40 million quid on Virgil van Dijk. That's now amortised over the remaining term of his contract, which would be another 4 or 5 years rather than the 2 we had left. Meaning that technically the club are in a healthier position financially, according to accountants. Again, don't ask me to explain it to you in great detail because I'm not qualified to do so. Did you hear the Curtis Jones news? Now, I know what you're talking about here, Henry. Yes, there is been a lot of talk that Aston Villa are interested in Curtis Jones. That's where it starts and stops for me with regards to my information, mate. I've seen it mentioned. I've not been told anything about it. I've not heard that it's about to happen or it isn't about to happen. I literally know nothing on it, mate. Nothing. Sarr makes no sense because he's gone to the AFCON, isn't he? Again, either way, yes, to some extent, mate, but, you know, we shouldn't be either looking to cover or worrying about a player who's going to the AFCON because it's only going to be 3 games they're away for. You know, so I wouldn't say no to a signing because of the AFCON, nor would I sign somebody just because of the AFCON. You know, you just want to get the right player. Right, somebody's saying Damsgaard news. Yes, let's talk about this because there has been links to Damsgaard, to the Sampdoria player, to say that Liverpool are weighing up a last-minute offer to sign him. And look, had a very good Euros, and I'm going to be entirely honest and say I knew little to nothing about Damsgaard before the Euros, but apparently we have been looking at him and monitoring him since long before the Euros. So, you know, I don't have access to Liverpool scouting department, of course, but Damsgaard, if all we've ever asked for here, and I think all any of us want, it's not who you want, or who I want, or who your man next door wants, or your woman up the road wants. It's just to back who the manager wants. So if the manager goes out, because he's realistic, the manager's not going to go to the board and go, give me Kylian Mbappe or I'm walking. Give me Cristiano Ronaldo or I'm walking. Give me Neymar Jr. or I'm walking. Of course, because he knows we're not going to have the money for that. So he's being realistic. So if he wants Damsgaard, then they better go get the man Damsgaard. It's as simple as that. No excuses, no fucking lies. If Klopp has identified a target that can be gotten in this window, then they should be tripping over themselves to, one, thank Jurgen Klopp for everything he's done to keep them together, to get us into the Champions League again this season, and 2, they had better get their finger out of their ass and back the man before he has second thoughts. Because if they want Klopp to stay past 2024, and it's a massive if whether he will or not, because we don't know, he ain't going to do it if he's not getting backed. He ain't going to do it if he can't see the future and the way forward, or if he remembers how he was treated when he needed 1 or 2 signings. Because that's all we're talking about here. A couple of little tweaks to give the squad a bit of depth and to build towards the future. It's not unrealistic, is it? Players that sign new contracts must feel good about their future at the club. Makes me feel confident Liverpool's a magical club. Now, that's a very good point, JC. I defo, no arguments on that whatsoever, mate. You know, in order for these players to sign those contracts, you're right. They must feel really happy at the club, stable at the club, and confident that the club are in a good place. So that's a very, very good point. Why have we renewed all the squad for F's sake? Says Robert. A lot of them it needed to be done, mate, because a lot of them had come into the last 2 years of their contracts, and that's generally where you look to start negotiation with players over a new deal. Unless you've brought somebody in, a young lad or something who has an incredible first season, and you want to just quickly give him an extension, which is really more of a pay bump in those scenarios. But we had to, is basically why. So we know that the Henderson deal seems to be all agreed. It's a 3-year deal with an option of a 4th. Yet no announcement. I wonder why. I think we all know why. Mohamed Salah, they're working on that one. Hopefully that gets over the line, because look, we can't afford to be losing Mohamed Salah. Craig, being honest, do you think we will sign anybody before Tuesday? Being 100% honest, mate. Genuinely, cards on the table. I don't have a fucking clue. And that's my honest answer. I can't say yes or I can't say no, because I don't have a clue. I'm just trying to see if I can even give you an indication of where I'd lie on it, just to try and lean one way or the other. I think we will. Don't take this as gospel, please. It's just an opinion from a fan. I think that there's enough shit being spoken about now that we will. That it's mainstream. As the pressure ratchets up, as the window comes, the close comes sooner, as clubs begin to get desperate for cash and stuff as well. And maybe if we do move Divock Origi on, because speaking of Divock Origi, let me just... Do you know, there's been links from the Express to Arsenal for Divock Origi if they are to lose Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang before the window closes. That would be the that would probably just cap off the most crazy transfer window, the most batshit transfer window in the history of transfer windows. If Arsenal move on Aubameyang and bring in Divock Origi as a replacement, that's it. We've peaked. We can just stop watching football anymore, because transfer windows will have peaked then. Mitchell Costello said, if this window was to keep key players and next summer is to bring Jude and others in, I'm all for it. Must get done. You know what, mate? How do I answer this? I agree with you, Mitchell. I agree with you, but I've no trust that it will get done next summer, mate. And I think that's the problem with a lot of us. If we've had owners that maybe have a track history of backing the manager and doing it, and then this particular year we just heard was going to be a quiet year, but we're building up to next year. But I think we've heard this tune played on that fiddle a few times, buddy, and I think that's what leaves lingering doubt in a lot of our minds, because the goodwill, the belief, the trust in the owners just simply isn't there with a lot of fans, mate. And this isn't, full on an FSG out rant. That's just me being genuine in my worries that we hear next summer all the fucking time, man. We hear it all the time. And that's not to say we won't make moves next summer, mate. It's not to say that you're not right, but do you trust them? I don't. If I'm being honest with you, Mitchell, mate, I don't trust them. Because if that wake-up call, if nearly missing out on the Champions League because of a similar scenario of not having adequate cover in a position that left us massively exposed with a few injuries, if that didn't give them the wake-up call to let them know that we need to add a few players in, mate, I don't know what will. Hence, must get done. Cheers, Craig. Much love. Exactly. That's why I was saying right back to you, mate. I mean, I was putting it back and saying, I agree with you, Mitchell. I personally don't have the faith. So, like you said, if you said to me, if the club came out tomorrow and said, we're not signing anybody else in this window, but we have a deal in place in principle, we're bringing in, we've planned to bring in next summer, we're going to bring in, what's his face, Jude Bellingham and, I don't know, pick a forward, let's say Pedro Neto as an example, then I think a lot of us would go, okay, but let me just reiterate, Mitchell, and come back to you, mate. Why do you think we might be bringing people in next summer? I've got the answer at the back of my mind that I think is the truth. Probably because we're going to move on one of the front three, mate. Whichever one doesn't sign the contract extension. So if Salah signs, maybe it's Mane that goes or Firmino that goes. But it looks like it'll be another sell to buy scenario next summer, which is what worries me, mate, because they couldn't get away with it this year and they're going to let somebody's contract run down. And I've got a feeling that whoever doesn't sign or whoever they don't offer it to, that'll be the one that's out the door and he'll be the one that's funding the move. And yet again, it'll be a negative spend or a zero net spend with regards to transfers. And will we still have beefed up the squad? Nope. We'll have just replaced one good player with another good player, probably leaving us the same amount of numbers. That's my guess at it, dude. And it is just that, I guess. Paul, how are you, Paul? So don't forget, Craig, a lot of players will be heading off on international duty. Time is short to get a deal over the line. Very, very fair point, Paul. Yeah, you're right, mate. A lot of lads will have finished up over the weekend and will be on their way. You know, Ronaldo, he was getting his medical done in Lisbon there as he gets ready to meet up with the Portugal side ahead of the game against Ireland on Wednesday. So yeah, that's another excellent point. So yeah, tick-tock. I'll tell you what, that's why I love our chat so much. The sensibility in so many of your comments, I mean, it's brilliant. Genuinely, your lads are on fire tonight and you ladies are on fire tonight. Well played. Keep it coming. More of this, please. And again, ladies and gentlemen, keep hitting that subscribe button. Thank you to everyone that has. Yeah, the tic-tac thing. I was trying to explain to Connor about that and he didn't know who it was. But yeah, that tic-tac thing is hilarious, isn't it? The guy with the Mbappe stuff for Real Madrid. What news on Suarez? To the best of my knowledge, Mohammed, there isn't any, other than something that I'd seen on Twitter yesterday and people getting a bit carried away. He's got 1 year left on the Letty deal. I don't believe he signed a new one, but I also don't know what he's going to do when that year is up. But I do remember, and I heard the words myself in an interview, I heard Luis Suarez say he plans to stay at Atletico de Madrid. He feels the love there and he wants to stay. Now, let's rewind back to last year. Do you think it's an accident that every time we get drawn against a Spanish team in the Champions League, they're either linked to one of our players or we're linked to one of their players? This case over, we get drawn against Atletico Madrid. Who we been linked with on Twitter and other places? Suarez. Who does he play for? Atletico Madrid. There you go. And often at times, mate, these things come from the Spanish side because they want to big up their own clubs and make them look like powerhouses. And I'll give you a perfect example of it. 1 second. Let me just bring up another player and another bullshit link. This gentleman here, Valverde, who I believe is a Uruguayan international, if my memory is correct. So there was a report from Madrid, Bernabeu Digital, couldn't be any fucking more Real Madrid friendly, obviously, that said Liverpool have inquired or wanted to buy Valverde for €100 million. Did we fuck? No, we didn't. But what does that do? That makes Madrid look like they're doing everything in their power to push away the big bad Liverpool that's trying to come in and destabilise their club. But big Florentino, he stood tall and he batted away Liverpool's interest and we kept Valverde and he stayed at the club. And isn't it all magnificent? And look how powerful Real Madrid are. It's bullshit. We didn't make the offer. We don't have the 100 million. If we did, we would have bought somebody and it wouldn't be Valverde. So this just goes to show you what I'm talking about. Certain media, in Spain in particular, somewhat in Italy, are very, very club friendly and put out a lot of propaganda bullshit that people lap up because it makes their clubs look powerful and their presidents look strong. It's nonsense. We won't get Bellingham next summer if we don't get Champions League this season, said Brian O'Reilly. Next summer is a carrot on a stick. It's nothing more than a pipe dream. Unfortunately, Brian Miel Mucker, I agree with you. It is the carrot on a stick, isn't it? It is, you know, I've got a bridge to sell you kind of scenario. And, you know, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. And that's kind of how I feel about it right now. Dream most reasonable last minute signing, said Craig is sexy, which is the best username I've quite frankly ever read on this channel, young man. I don't even know if you're a young man. You could be a young lady or you could be an old person, but either way, You're damn right he is, and thank you. Dream last minute signing. I think Doku's probably the perfect one. I mean, Damsgaard could be a good fit. I don't know enough about the lad other than what I've seen at the Euros. But what I've said all along, Craig is sexy, and what I'm going to say again, Craig is sexy, is that whoever we want, Craig is sexy, it doesn't matter. All that matters, Craig is sexy, is whoever the manager wants. And if the manager wants Doku, Craig is sexy, or if the manager wants Damsgaard, Craig is sexy, then the manager should get who the manager wants. Craig is sexy. What about Dan James? Oh, to play football? Oh, God, no. Oh, Jesus, no. You're all right, mate. Yeah, no, we're fully stocked, actually, at Liverpool, now that I think about it. We've got no positions available. Nah, look, Dan James is, yeah, no, you're all right. Pass. Craig is sexy has started something very bad. Yeah, sorry. You know, I might change my username to Craig is sexy and then start just talking about myself in the third person. Will Matip keep starting alongside VVD or would Kanade be better? Do you know what, mate? I'm actually really glad to start talking about football and matters for a second or two rather than transfer gossip. I think keep Matip as things stand. You know, it's not unusual for Kloppo to try and give lads time to bed in. And Kanade is new to the club, you know, and I'm sure we'll get minutes and probably play in the League Cup game against Norwich and, you know, we'll start to be introduced. But I think Matip is doing really well alongside Van Dijk, and we conceded 1 goal in 3 games with those two as a centre-back pairing, and I thought that they coped really well with Lukaku yesterday. So I'd leave it as is for the time being. But it is nice knowing, isn't it, that we have an Ibrahima Kanate, a Joe Gomez there as well, to come in and challenge for places. But right now, I go with Matip, to be honest with you, because I think he's been really, really good. And if, you know, touch wood, and I am touching wood because I have a wooden desk here, and Joel can stay fit. Now, we turned down the option to go back and play for Cameroon. They inquired about his availability and he turned them down. And look, we do love a bit of baby giraffe, don't we? We love Joe Matip, and if he can stay fit, he is a fine defender. And if he can't, then maybe Gomez or maybe Kanade will get that opportunity. And then it's up to them to take the opportunity when it's given. How about Saka from Arsenal? Well, look, he just signed a deal with Arsenal, didn't he? Last year, he signed the thing. I think it was last year. I mean, with COVID and all, time is just, you know, sailed by. I don't know what's what half the time, what day it is, let alone what year we're in sometimes. But yeah, look, he's at Arsenal there, and you know, a lot of people pointing fingers at Arteta at Arsenal, which is fair, but I would point even more fingers at the sporting director Edu and say, what the hell is he doing making these signings? Because I don't see the rhyme or reason behind some of the players they've signed. Title is yours this season, 100%. I don't think it is, mate, but I think we'll be there or thereabouts. I do. Craig is sexy, said sexiest man going. Thank you, Craig is sexy. Appreciate the comment there, Craig is sexy. Rabadan, who isn't Craig is sexy, by the way. I suspect a new midfielder will be Ula Klopp, said Rabadan. Yeah. At least it'd be a signing at this point, mate. And look, again, I'm not somebody that just wants any signing. I want somebody who Jurgen Klopp wants to sign. And that's the only thing. I'm not trying to sit here and shout about us making a signing because Craig thinks we should make a signing. It's because it's eminently clear, or abundantly clear to everybody that we need another attacking player because Origi isn't up to it. And if he thought Origi was up to it, why the fuck hasn't he been in the matchday squads? Where was he yesterday when we were crying out for a forward against Chelsea? He wasn't even in the matchday squad. That tells you everything that you need to know. So either they're not playing him because they don't want to risk him picking up an injury because they're trying to move him on. 1 second, Harry. Sorry, folks. Sorry, I heard my little man crying upstairs, and he's got his other cast off today, and I was worried that he'd fallen and hurting his arm again. So I was just checking. So sorry about that, interrupting the stream. Yeah, Lucas got a second cast off today, so he finally has his two arms back, and he starts back school on Tuesday. But yeah, that's why I had to stop it. Sorry, I just had to make sure he was all right. Am I Scottish? No, I'm Irish, mate. Adama destroyed United today, said Sean672. I was wondering how long before the Adama Traore comments were going to start coming in. Yeah, he did. He did do really well against United today. But the one thing that I've always questioned about Adama was the one thing again today that was lacking, which was end product, the final pass, the finish. So as good as he is and was, there's always going to be that lingering question about, has he got the finished product? Can he deliver the finished product? And I don't know the answer to that one. Is Greenwood better than Saka? I mean, I would say yeah. I say you two very good players. But look, Mason Greenwood, he looks like legit is the only word I can use. Like, I look at Harvey Elliott, legit. Foden, legit. Mount, legit. Greenwood, legit. Now, Saka's good and will be a very, very, very good player. But Greenwood, as much as it pains me to say it, he does look a very good player. He does look a very good player. Adama is so unique, said Sean Burke. Yes, he's loads of good attributes. Loads of attributes you would look at it and go, yeah, he's pacey, he's strong, he's direct. But all of that still needs an end product. All of that still needs a final ball. And look, you know, I'm not going to disrespect the coaches at Wolves and say that he hasn't worked with some good coaches, because he has. And the same worry is still there. And that's before, by the way, we address the shoulder issue, which I've spoken about many times. He has an issue with his right shoulder where it's been dislocated, I think twice maybe last season and maybe 6 times over the past couple of seasons. So there is that to keep in mind as well. And, you know, I'm again, just as I wasn't an accountant, I'm no doctor, but, you know, I understand that from my understanding of these things, once it starts popping out regularly, you know, it can be something that happens quite a bit. We should sign Ricky Pooch, said Rudranal. Again, another good young Barca talent, along with Ansu Fati and, of course, Pedri, who's there now as well, and Mariba, who may be going to Spurs. They look like they're putting in a bid for him as well. And we spoke about Spurs and their rumoured interest in Jeremy Doku earlier on in the stream. Yeah, I'd see, this is the type of thing I was saying all summer, mate. Barcelona are up shit creek. Clock's ticking for them as well. They need to start moving players on badly before they can start registering some others. And there's value to be had. And why not throw in cheeky bids? Why not put the pressure on them? Why not wind them up a bit? Why not try and get a few other star players out? If they're in that much trouble, they might have a choice. They do the same to us. Can I talk about Suarez? Just nothing to talk about. Or are you saying, can you talk about Aziz? Don't know who that is, mate. Sorry. Mariba is going to Leipzig. Good move for them. Good move for them if they are getting him. Yes, good move. Fair play to Leipzig. A stupid piece of business once again.
Lucas is fine.
Well, I gathered that when you told me Lucas was fine.
He lost a game of Rocket League.
Ah, so he lost the computer game. He's like his daddy. When he loses, that's something he doesn't take very well. Greenwood, next Beckham. I don't know. Again, if you're a United fan, I wouldn't be putting that tag on him, because I wouldn't be putting that much stress on his young shoulders. I'd just say, go do it. Like, just go deliver, man. Just go play your football and enjoy yourself. Has Salah signed yet? No. He hasn't, mate. No. Craig, did the club and Hendo agree to an extension yet? Yes. It's widely known it's a 3-year deal and an option of an extra year. But I don't know when that will be announced. You know, is that going to be an announcement either just before or just after the end of the window? Who knows? Because, yeah, it will, of course, lift spirits amongst Liverpool fans, because we all like Jordan Henderson. He's club captain. We want him to stay. Do you think FSG could be intentionally stalling because they don't want to re-sign him? No, from what I believe, it's all been agreed, and just a few formalities to be ticked off on that one. Haaland possibilities. Nope. Not when he was looking for 46 million quid a year or something last I heard, and that's before Mina Raiola got his 36 million out of it. And again, don't believe what I have to say. Google it for yourself and research it. The numbers have been floating around. The numbers have been floating around publicly for a while about the proposed numbers around any transfer for young Erling Haaland. Damsgaard rumours are true. Could well be. Sudhir, I spoke about it earlier on, so for those who are coming in a bit late, Liverpool have been once again linked with a move for Sampdoria's Damsgaard, the Danish international. And look, could be true, could not be true. I genuinely don't know. I'll just reiterate what I've always said. If he's the man that Klopp's pointed to and said, I believe that this gentleman could come in and do a job for us, then I hope that the board acts and goes and gets him. Whether that player's Doku, I hope the board acts and goes and get him. If it was Rafi, whoever it is, because again, I'm going to keep going back to the same thing. Klopp's not going to identify somebody he knows that the club won't sanction or can't afford. What will be the point? He has a rough idea of what transfers he may or may not be able to push through with the transfer committee. And as long as whoever he identifies is, then I'd be happy with that, because I trust Klopp's judgment. I trust the scouting department's judgment, because their hit rate has been pretty good with the ones that we have signed. You know, look at Mohamed Salah. Nobody seen that situation arising. Look at what's happened with Sadio Mane. Granted, he fell off last year. He didn't have his greatest year, but it's been a massive success. Diogo Jota. Already that transfer fee is starting to look relatively cheap. So the club have been quite good. Now, there are some other sides to the story. Keita hasn't hit the ground running, I think it's fair to say. You know, you can look at Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain, the amount of money we paid for him, and say, was that value? Well, he helped us really in the season when Coutinho left. He was a massive part of why we got to a Champions League final, but injuries have hampered his Liverpool career since then. Right, let's keep going. Some more of your comments. The Aziz links are coming from caught offside. Well, I'll let you all make up your own mind on if you think caught offside is a reputable site to take your transfer news from. I mean, not for me to say. I'll let everybody make up their own mind. What's this one? Right, so what we know about Bobby Firmino as well is that he's going to undergo a hamstring scan in the next 24 hours or so. And as we know, he went off just before half-time in the game against Chelsea on Saturday evening and was replaced by Diogo Jota. So fingers crossed that Bobby doesn't have a long spell on the sidelines, because, again, like I said at the start of the stream, that one game yesterday showed us that once Diogo Jota came on and we were forced into an early change, the attacking options on the bench were minimal at best. We had a 10-man Chelsea in the second half who sat deep, and we needed creativity and spark to try and break them down. Thiago, yes, we can understand why he turned to Thiago, but we hadn't really got any direct runners, had we? We hadn't got any wide forwards that we could come in and have a go at fullbacks or try and overload the box with players. We had nice players who can pass the ball side to side and move the ball around, but nobody with the magic, nobody with a sprinkling of stardust there. And even when Robbo had to come off because he was jaded and didn't have his greatest game as well, to be fair, we could only replace him with a like-for-like replacement, not a left winger, not an attacking player to come in and roll the dice a little bit, because, you know, we could have sat back and, you know, left a couple of players back and pushed 8 of our players forward in search of that winner and, you know, kept Verge and Matip on the halfway line or whatever. But again, there just wasn't the options on the bench. And if you're going to say to me, well, Craig Naby, Keita and Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain was on the bench, Takumi Minamino was on the bench, well, why didn't he put them on? And I think the truth lies in the back of all of our minds is that we know he didn't put them on because he probably didn't believe that they were going to be able to impact the game in a way that we needed them to. That's the only reason I can think of, folks. It's not a nice thing to say, but it seems to be. Now, look, the players that might suit against Chelsea might not be the players that will suit against another team. It's like I always say, horses for courses. But it does show us that against particular teams, or in a particular part of a game, or in a pattern like that where it's clearly attack versus defence because they're a man down, we don't have that sprinkling of magic outside of Mohamed Salah. Because Sadio at the minute isn't himself. Firmino picked up a knock, and Jota, Jota can do it. He's great at finding space, by the way, in the box between centre backs. The amount of headers he wins astounds me, quite frankly. But the drop off from there is huge. Suarez back to Liverpool would be amazing. It would be a nice story, be fun to chat about, but I don't know if it would necessarily be hugely beneficial to us in the long term. It's a short stop solution, which makes me think it would be a reactionary signing and not something that we plan to do in the window, which would worry me even more, quite frankly, because it's just buying time. Whereas we should be looking to set Klopp up for the remainder of his contract. And then when his contract's coming towards its end, be looking to bring through the Musialowskis, the Cade Gordons, maybe in a year or two's time. Those great young players that we have. That young guy that we brought in from Newcastle, Bobby Clark, the other day. Those guys should be ready and coming through as Klopp's coming to the end of his tenure. And the next manager should be getting a great crop of players coming through. And that's, again, testament to good recruitment and the great work that Alex Inglethorpe and the lads are doing at underage level. And again, because of Klopp wanting that facility at Kirby, which you do have to give credit to the owners for because they sanctioned the building of it. So as I've said, I'm not always going to just come on here slate the owners. I will give them the credit for the good things that they do. But there's no coming out of this window without making an attacking sign and looking good. It's just stupidity, in my opinion, if we don't do it. Icardi on loan? No. Why the fuck would we want Icardi on loan? Why would we want a loan full stop? I don't like loans. And let me tell you why. Let's say we loan in, use your example, Icardi. Best case scenario, we do really well. So then what happens? One of two things. We either buy him and we spend money, but psychologically we're already used to seeing the player in the team, so it doesn't feel like a new addition. Or they ask a ridiculous amount of money, we don't pay, and we then lose him, and we're back to square one again the following year. It's just short-term thinking. And, if there's one thing you'll credit, or we could credit the owners for, it is that they don't really think short term. That's why we don't make many reactionary signings, except for that shambles last December, when we, or January, I should say, when we were trying to scrape around looking for defenders. And even that was a shambles. Do I think anything will happen transfer-wise from Liverpool? Emmett, like you, mate, it's guesswork. I can't sit here with a clear conscience and tell you yes or no either way because I quite simply don't know. One surefire way for me not to read your comment is to ask me to read your comment, mate. So, put in a comment. Happy to try and get to it. So Maximum is the dream. Absolutely world class at Emmett JM. Who else we got? Paul Smith. Nope, he's talking to somebody else. Sorry. I thought you were asking a question. Elijah John 5 said, was a great result for Chelsea, taking everything into account. It was, yeah. I mean, if you're a Chelsea fan, you're probably fearing the worst at half-time. Equaliser just before the half. Reece James sent off for the handball incident. But Thomas Tuchel showed why he has that team as the current champions of Europe, because they were well organised. They made good changes from the bench and were able to bring in the likes of Thiago Silva to help marshal that defence through and keep Liverpool out. And it was a very good, dogged defensive performance from Chelsea yesterday. And you've got to give them credit for that. As frustrating as it was for us, you have to give Chelsea credit for it. Would I want Sterling back? Do you know what? I would take him. Again, I'd take him and I'll explain to you why. You're going to say to me now, well, hang on, Craig, you're a bit of a hypocrite. You wouldn't have Coutinho back. You called him a snake and all of this stuff, which I have. Well, I've never used the phrase snake because it's not the type of phrase I'd use, but I have said I don't like the way he left the club, yes. Now, I'd look at Raheem Sterling a little bit differently and let me explain why. One, Jurgen Klopp wasn't at the club when Raheem Sterling left. Two, we got an obscene amount of money for the kid at the time. And three, the club weren't really showing the ambition that he wanted. We had Brendan Rodgers in. Yeah, we had a good lineup with Luis Suarez and Sturridge at the time, but again, we weren't really progressing. We were in and around Champions League places, and we had some roll the dice signings like Lazar Markovic and stuff like that. And even look at the way that we spent some of the money. Suarez money as an example, absolutely pissed it up against the wall. So I understood, as much as I disliked why Raheem Sterling went. I kind of, from footballing merit reasons, I understand why he left. So would I have him back? Well, yeah, I probably would. But we won't be getting him, so it's kind of redundant. And I doubt he will come back. Oh, will he come back? I have absolutely no doubts in my mind that Raheem Sterling will come back to Liverpool. None. I'm actually probably more confident about saying that than I would be about now whether City sell him to us or would sell him to us or we could afford him or pay his wages. That's a whole another conversation. But do I think Raheem Sterling will come back to Liverpool? Yes, I absolutely do. How about Alexander Isak? Signed a new contract with Real Sociedad after the Euros. He had a €75 million release clause in his contract before the Euros. I don't know this factually, but I can only imagine that they tied him down to that new deal to increase that buyout clause. So, again, if they didn't want to sell him before the Euros, I don't think they're going to want to sell him now. Do I think we could be in for Haaland next year? I think there's more chance of me turning into Haaland than us signing Haaland, to be honest with you. Am I the brother of Michael Van Gerwen? Yeah, I'm the heavier, less talented brother of Van Gerwen. Thoughts on Mane at the moment, said Declan McCartney. It's a difficult one on Sadio, isn't it? Because, he scored a very good goal, a very well-worked goal in the game against Burnley. Beautiful move that. Van Dijk, Elliott, Trent, Sadio back of the net. Just even thinking about it, I'm getting happy. But he doesn't look himself. He doesn't. And I keep wanting to convince myself that he does. I keep looking at some of the stuff that he does and thinking, is this the same Sadio? And I don't know if it's, like, if I look at the right-hand side of Liverpool as an example, with Harvey Elliott there, you see the link-up play straight away between Elliott, Trent and Salah. Even if Hendo's on the right-hand side, you can see the link-up play between Hendo, Salah and Trent. I can't see that on the left-hand side unless Naby plays. And there seems to be a bit more of a wavelength between Naby Keita and Sadio Mane. Now look at yesterday when Hendo was more on the left-hand side of that midfield. It just didn't look well balanced at all, did it? It looked a little bit off kilter, and we didn't look as effective going down the left-hand side. Now, of course, Robbo didn't have his greatest game either, so that didn't help, but we seemed a little bit off balance there. And, we often speak about these little relationships around the pitch and how they know each other and know when the run's going to be made and when they'll drop a shoulder and what patterns of play to get used to. I think on the left side yesterday, we seen that wasn't quite there. So to me, that's the one potential spot where somebody could do a bit of damage. And ideally, we'd like that to be Keita. Because, Naby Keita on the front foot, playing well, confident, is a very good footballer who links up very well with Sadio and, can win the ball back high up the field, can break lines when needed to, and isn't shy about getting into the box. So, yeah, what was the question again? I went off on a tangent there and I don't even remember what the question was. But I hope I answered it. Valverde news. Yeah, it was just that there was some bullshit linked from Bernabeu Digital that suggested that Real Madrid had, pushed away the advances of Liverpool, who wanted to spend €100 million of this fucking imaginary money that maybe only exists in Madrid's head. It's just lies, mate. To be honest, it's just more lies out there. We didn't go after the 100 million Valverde. We all know that. It's just, as I said at the start of the stream, it's just done to make Madrid look big and powerful and make Florentino Perez look like he's, batting away the financial might of the Premier League, and Madrid are still as robust and strong as ever. It's just, for want of a better word, propaganda. John W. Henry needs to wake up. Yeah, he needs a bucket of cold water to wake him up. You know, that much of a waking up. Killer Luke 09. Yep, thank you for the super chat, mate. I just read your John W. Henry comment out. Divock contract extension. You're not fooling anybody with that trolling comment. We need Rafinha. I think perfect fit. Look, none of us would be unhappy if Liverpool were to sign Rafinha, would we? But I don't think he'd leave Leeds at the minute. You know, the fact that Bielsa signed a new deal there as well, I think he'll stay at least one more year at Leeds, Rafinha, but he is a quality player. Plenty of propaganda nowadays. Oh, there certainly is, Norton. There certainly is, mate. In all aspects of life, dude. In all aspects of life. Seeing Fabinho yesterday and Fred today made me cry a bit, said Patrick. Yeah, there is a bit of a difference, to be fair, isn't there? I mean, even... You know, a lot of banter with United fans, but we know that they wanted Fabinho. They know they wanted Fabinho, and they ended up with Fred. And that was a transfer, by the way, that, again, none of the main media that we knew of had a sniff of. I certainly had no idea about, nor did anybody I knew. But it was one of those that once you heard it, you were like, oh, yes, that'll do. That works. That is bang on. And I think because we've seen that, and we've seen... the Diogo Jota one come out of nowhere, absolutely nowhere. And, you know, we've seen those deals happen, and maybe that's why some of us now are thinking, is it possible that there is something, but it's been really, really, really kept on the wraps? Both of those deals had one thing in common, by the way. They both came from the same agency, which is George Mendes' agency, the Guest of You agency, which is the one that I believe represented Ronaldo, or does represent Ronaldo. So we have a very good working relationship with that agency. Again, I'm not trying to link us to Ronaldo in any way, sorry. I was just talking about, you know, he was involved in that move to bring Ronaldo back to United. So we definitely have good ins there. But, you know, if there's anybody in that stable that we're interested in or not, or that's represented by that agency, I couldn't tell you. I don't keep up on who represents players well enough to know and then link them to our transfers. I really wanted Doku. See, what hurts me about your comment there, Ali, is the fact that we're already sort of admitting to ourselves it won't happen. So, like, I wanted Doku as well, mate. I won't lie to you. And we can still technically say, I want Doku because he's available. But this is what shows there's no real belief in us that our club, our owners, are going to have the conviction to go out and get a player that we've been tracking for 3 or 4 years. That's the sad part, mate, isn't it? And that's, I think, what hurts us all. Because every single one of us, to a man, woman and child, knows that the group of players we have are phenomenal. The manager that we have, phenomenal. The coach is phenomenal. None of us doubt them. But we do doubt the depth. We do doubt that if we pick up 1 or 2 injuries, well, I said not that we do doubt. We know if we pick up 1 or 2 injuries, we're going to be left a little bit short. And that's realistic. It doesn't mean we're salty. It doesn't mean we're all completely FSG out nutcases or we're all pro FSG nutcases. It just means that they're the facts that are laid before us. And if last season didn't teach us a lesson, and by us I mean the club, in not filling these voids and preparing for any eventuality, I don't know what will. I really just don't know what will. Where's the time gone, by the way? I can't believe I've been on here 1 hour and 5 minutes already. It's just gone by in the blink of an eye. Now, I can stay on for another 10 or 15 minutes if you guys want me to, because I've got nothing else to do tonight. I'm free after this, so let me know in the chat. Give me a thumbs up if you want me to stay on. If you want me to head off, we'll call it night. I'll see you tomorrow. All good. I just want to get through as many of your comments as I can. Because, you know, it's your show, ladies and gentlemen. I know sometimes I have Jack on and it's more difficult then when I've got a guest to dip into the chat. But that's why tonight I made sure it was just me, because I wanted to come in and have a read of your comments. And again, thank you for those that have hit the subscribe button. Please continue to do so. Drop a like on the video. Right, we keep going. You guys are the bosses. Let's keep going. Craig, are you optimistic that we will be title contenders this season? Kind of a yes and a no answer to that one. Who asked the question? I like to, you know, Hashashil and me. I hope I got that right, even though I doubt that's your actual name. But if it is, Hashashalin, yes, I believe we could do it, but everything would have to go right for us. I mean, we'd have to pick up no real serious injury concerns. We'd have to have a rub of the green along the way, of course, which, you know, any club does to go and win a title. So, do I think we're title contenders? I would say we are outsiders, but not unrealistic. So, I would say, in my humble opinion, Man City and Chelsea are probably the two favourites for the title, and Liverpool and United are the best place of the rest. Now, I say this at a time where Spurs, to their immense credit, have won 3 out of 3. Imagine I said to you, guys, we're going to be going into the international break. Spurs are going to be top of the table, and Arsenal are going to be right down at the bottom. Would we believe it? Spurs top, their rivals right down the other end. Last place, 20th. Arsenal, after spending, what, 130, 140 million quid? Last, bottom. Like, down there. Madness. Spurs, top of the fuck. I don't know, look at that Spurs team and they're not even that good. So I don't think they'll be there by the time the season ends. Window closes Tuesday at 11, Adam. It's not midnight, mate. It's 11 UK time. Midnight maybe on Europe, but 11 our time. I say UK time, Irish time's on the same time. So when I said air, I didn't mean I'm in the UK. You know, just want to clear that up. But yeah, Spurs top, Arsenal bottom. I mean, it just tops off the most batshit transfer window ever. That Messi's moved from Barcelona to PSG. Ronaldo has moved from Juventus, was just about to go to City by the looks of it, and has ended up back at United. Kylian Mbappe has had a bid of 180 million turned down for him by PSG. I'm going to repeat that again because it is real. They've had a bid of 170 or 180 million quid turned down for a player who can sign a pre-contract agreement with Madrid in January and leave for nothing next year. And PSG have turned that down. We're in a window where Jack Grealish has gone for £100 million. £100 million to Manchester City. And Spurs are top of the fucking league. Madness. It's just madness. If we pull off an amazing signing like a Pedri or a Barella, would I be FSG in? No. Like, there was no coming back for me, personally, from the Super League stuff. That was it. End of. I will stay silent on FSG until there comes a time where I need to speak about them again, whether it be with regards to backing the manager or what. But even though I am probably more FSG out than I am FSG in, I'm not somebody that's vocally going to be saying, get out of my club. That's not the way I go about things. I try and, you know, give credit where it's due for the good things and call people out for the bad things. And I try to be fair in doing that. So, would making a signing make me FSG in? No. But it would make me more hopeful that Klopp would have the tools at his disposal that he'd need to make a real push in the competitions this year. Well done, Craig, for taking your stance on FSG. Look, I think it's the realist's view. You know, everybody wants to pigeonhole us, you know, and again, it does my head in. And I've seen a really good tweet on this, and I don't have it to hand, but, you know, I'm sure a lot of you have probably seen it on Twitter as well. There isn't just this world that exists where you're an FSG out lunatic or you're an FSG in apologist. There is this whole area in the middle of most of us. I think it's where most of us live, where we're realistic. And we know that there's good and bad points. We don't forgive them for the shitty things they've done, and we do credit them for the good stuff that they've done. But that doesn't make any difference to this window. This window, every single transfer window is taken in isolation. And this window, they haven't been good enough. So that doesn't make me an FSG out lunatic. But giving them credit for the few good bits they've done doesn't make me an apologist. I'm just a fan who wants what's best for a manager who is probably a once-in-a-lifetime manager for a lot of us. You know, we have Jurgen Norbert Klopp at the helm of this football club. And to this day, I still can't believe he's Liverpool manager. I'm so thankful, grateful that we have him in. But yet I feel like in getting the manager that we and FSG both craved and wanted, I feel like they use him as a scapegoat for not doing business because they believe that his brilliance and his coaching techniques and Pep Linder's techniques and Kravertz and everybody else in the clubs that works with it, that their brilliance will paper over these cracks that we're being left short of. That's what fucking annoys me, because none of us want to look back in 5 or 10 years and go, God, wasn't it great under Klopp? We won a Premier League, we won a Champions League, we won the Club World Cup, we got to see possibly the greatest goal scorer this club has ever seen play for us. We had some amazing nights, but we probably could have had another couple of league titles or another Champions League if we just gave them 1 or 2 more players. Nobody wants to be looking back at with that. We want to look back and know that when we had this man at the club, this generational manager, that he was given the best tools that we can afford. Because I don't buy this, we can't afford shit. I'm sorry, I don't buy it. I understand that we've got a high wage. I understand it. I understand we spend a lot on agent fees. I get it. But owners they're almost too risk averse at this point. I understand not taking out 150 million quid loan like Levy did for Spurs. I understand not playing the roulette game like Barcelona have, ending up so over $1 billion in debt. I get that. And their fiscal responsibility is one of the good points for me with FSG, because we are sustainable. We aren't in a financial mess, and they have been responsible for a lot of the good stuff that has led to that. But this is a window where it's an extraordinary window for me, and a time where there is probably extraordinary value to be had, and I just feel that we're missing out if we don't back the manager. That's where I am. That's the position I hold. If that makes me FSG in, FSG out, whatever, it's just how I feel. Kyle said, we all know FSG can be unreliable. Hope the next summer really is the big one. Would love a player like Bellingham or maybe a forward in the club. I think I'm setting myself up, Kyle May, for a whole world of pain here, because in my head, and it is only in there, buddy, I've already got Jude Bellingham in a Liverpool shirt. In my head, he's already here next summer. And I'm setting myself up for a whole world of pain there. Glazers or FSG? 100% FSG. 100%. That doesn't mean that I'm FSG in though, mate. It just means that we're fortunate not to have the Glazers. Because for those of you that think that this is a comparable set of clubs and finances, it isn't. Manchester United generate a shit ton of money. They are a money-making machine. They revolutionised and moved forward with their finances, with their commercial partnerships, with their sponsorship deals far, far quicker than we did. Look at what they did with Old Trafford. Look at how many years ago it was they increased the capacity there, brought a turnover in revenue. They make money like maybe only Real Madrid. They print the shit. Like, literally, they're a money-making machine. They can afford to drop £500,000 a week on Cristiano Ronaldo just to stop him going to Manchester City. And believe me, they can afford it. And the only thing that is stopping them from being able to really compete with Paris Saint-Germain and Manchester City and these other oil-rich clubs, because United are a self-sustaining club, is the fact that the Glazers are paying out so much money because of the leverage buyout of the club. So many repayments on the mortgage, if you like, for the club, the interest. And then you've got the fact that United is traded on the stock exchange and they have a fiduciary responsibility to those shareholders and stuff. And the dividends have to be paid out and all of this other stuff. But trust me, mate, they make a fuckload of money at that club. But they are also milking that teeth dry. Like, they are, you know what I mean? Whereas FSG haven't taken a penny that I'm aware of at a Liverpool football club. And therein lies the difference, because they could have leveraged the club like Hicks and Gillette did when they bought it. They could have taken out a value or a mortgage against the club, but they didn't. They bought it with their own money because they had that money in their investment. They had it available to hand. They bought the club. No debt on it. United, they can cover the debt. Of course they can. The club is worth far more than the Glazers paid for it. But with regards to owners, mate, they are... I would take FSG every day of the week over the Glazers. I really would. And that's saying a lot. We should target Barcelona, said Kyle. They need the money, mate. I've been saying it all summer. All summer, I've been saying it. Go into Barcelona and give them a taste of their own medicine. And, oh, sorry, did I kick you in the balls? Oh, sorry, let me kick you in the balls again when I put in another low ball offer. Oh, and you know what? Even if we don't sign any of your players, Barcelona, I'm still going to shithouse it, and I'm still going to wind them up, and I'm still going to turn their heads, and I'm still going to do exactly what you did to us in the middle of our season, you absolute karma-having bitches. That's what I'd be doing if I was Michael Edwards and FSG now. I would be showing Barcelona what it's like to be kicked in the nuts when you're least expecting it. To have Felipe Coutinho taken out from under you when he'd already promised the club that he was going to be staying for the season. Oh, payback would be a bitch. Even if we didn't sign a single one of their players, I would be dropping in bids left, right and centre for Pedri. I would be talking to agents all over the place, and I would be leaving trails of fucking breadcrumbs towards Jurgen Klopp as far as the eye could see, just because payback's a bitch. And I don't think there's enough shithousery in football these days. Man U raced away from us in the 90s because of a European ban. Not just because of that, mate, but for lots of reasons. They were just basically, they were visionaries and they were streets ahead of us. Again, I keep going back to this story that sounds like it's made up, but, you know, people will probably be aware of this. Some people may not be aware of this, but Istanbul, 2005. Because it was such a family-run club, Liverpool, because that team got to a European final against a lot of odds, the club tried to do a nice thing by bringing a lot of the staff over to Istanbul. Now, the problem with that was the club shop wasn't open the day after the Champions League final. This is the days where the online store wouldn't have been there. Online store was outsourced. Think about that. Imagine that happening now. If Liverpool or United or Real or whoever win a Champions League, within 30 seconds of that final whistle being blown, the shit's on sale. You either go online or you buy it. But that Champions League winner stuff is available like that. Club shop was closed. That wouldn't have happened at Old Trafford. That was the little differences. That was just one small example of the difference between where we were as recently as 2005 as to how far we've come. And this is where FSG do get their credit, because they have increased commercial partnerships, they have increased revenue, they have brought in Jurgen Klopp, they have built the main stand, the training facility. So that's in the pro column, that's in the plus column. But that negative column, all of that gets eclipsed for me by the Super League fiasco and trying to sell our history. Those 6 European clubs, that night in Istanbul, sell all that down the river for the guaranteed 300-400 million a season, or whatever that deal was. That's where I can turn my mind back, and that's where I can forgive. Because they took my whole childhood, my culture, my belief in a club, in a way of doing things, in a way of treating people, in a way of achieving and striving to get to greatness and being there on merit. They tried to sell all that down the river just to make sure that the club kept having this cash cow every single year. And that I can't forgive, nor will I ever forgive. Craig, will I be streaming on deadline day? Yes, I will. Now, I'll know tomorrow what way my day is being split. I will definitely be on Anfield Agenda on deadline day. I just don't know if I might have to get Jax to cover for me for an hour or two, because I don't know what I might have to do on That's Football. There's a meeting tomorrow. I'll find out if I have to do some time on That's Football on transfer deadline day, but always the priority will be Anfield Agenda. So yes, I will absolutely be. It's weird because I read that as steaming, which would have probably also been a yeah, because I probably would have been steaming, as in fuming. Not the Irish sense of steaming, which is a little, after a few scoops. LeBron should buy Liverpool. He already owns some of it, mate. Yeah, I think he owns 3% of all of FSG's holdings now, or maybe his 3% of Liverpool was changed to 1.5% of something, but he does own some of Liverpool anyway. He owns some of all of FSG's holdings now. What's your prediction for Jake Paul versus Woodley? I don't believe Jake Paul would have taken the fight if he thought he was going to lose it, so I think he'll win that fight. Tommy Fury's on the undercard. Will we see a bit of a call out then for the Tommy Fury thing? I don't know. I've spoke about the Jake Paul fight at length before. There's two ways of looking at it. You either see the obnoxious little shit that he is and hate him, or you see the obnoxious little shit that he is and give him credit for the way he's actually making money while learning his trade. Because if he genuinely wants to become a boxer, and these are fights that he's making to tune himself up and prepare himself and go from a 4-rounder to a 6-rounder to an 8 to a 10 to then the championship distance, then you give him credit because he's getting paid while learning his craft. Whereas most boxers have to sell tickets, have to hustle, get very little money. So if he is genuinely sincere about it and starts fighting boxers and starts really fighting cruiserweights and trying to become a real boxer, it could be genius. Because he could, do you know what I mean? I'll never, ever slag off anybody for making a pound note. Never. But to talk the way he's speaking is a bit deluded when you haven't done jack shit yet with regards to boxing. If he wants to get in and he wants to fight boxers and he's using this instead of fighting lads with negative records, great, so be it. As long as he eventually starts getting to the point where he's fighting boxers. Now, he wants to get in the ring with Canelo. I've seen his checklist. I've seen his list of people he wants to fight. He wants to fight, his brother is on his list apparently. He wants to fight McGregor. He wants to fight Canelo. Have you seen Canelo's reaction to any of this, by the way? Because Canelo wouldn't disrespect himself by getting into a ring with Jake Paul. Canelo doesn't need the money. Canelo has fuck you money. And Canelo has a lot of fuck you money. McGregor also has fuck you money. So I'm sure Jake Paul probably has a fair amount of fuck you money as well. But McGregor may fight him. Tommy Fury may fight him. But he just needs to start fighting boxers. That's it. If you want to be taken seriously, have all these fights, get all your shit out of your system, but then start fighting boxers. No point doing deadline day streaming. We aren't getting anybody. Probably true, Henry. But then again, that's not to say we mightn't move anybody on deadline day, buddy. You know, we still have what might happen with Nat Phillips. What's happening with Divock Origi? There has been some loose stories around Curtis Jones, although I don't believe he'll go anywhere. So, you know, I will be streaming on deadline day because I'm going to take from Thursday to Monday off. I won't be doing any content whatsoever. I'm going over to Leeds on Friday for the Warrington Lara fight. Myself and Connor are going over there for the weekend, and Katie Taylor's fighting on the undercard. So I'm using the international break to get a bit of a rest. And yeah, but tomorrow, loads of stuff. I'm going to be recording with Michael Ramsey, the Irish guy, for Craig Station. So that'll be coming out in the coming week or two. We will be live with a late night agenda tomorrow. We'll be recording the One Football news video, which will be going out as well. So yeah, please do keep it tuned to Anfield Agenda. Thank you for everyone for tuning in tonight. I've had lots of fun. I hope you guys have as well. Fingers crossed that, you know, the transfer fairies bring us something special before the window closes. But look, love and respect to all of you guys from around the world for watching as always, no matter where you are. Appreciate you giving up your time, being here with me and sharing all of our frustrations. Hit the subscribe button, drop a like on the video. Don't forget to turn your notifications on as well. I'll be back tomorrow. Take care, lots of love.